All right. Welcome to the Gym Life Podcast, episode 6. And for many of you out there listening right now, happy Memorial Day weekend. That's right. I'm recording this a day prior to the weekend because I got a busy weekend. And I know for a lot of you out there, Memorial Day weekend is the gateway to summer. And it certainly feels like summer out there. The weather has been very indicative of a early summer. It's been 80 degrees in Michigan, and we're all chomping at the bit to get out this weekend to enjoy it. The weather looks great. So for many of you out there, I hope you're having a great Memorial Day weekend. I know in the Gym Life community, this is a pretty big weekend for a lot of us. I know a lot of us out there have the luxury of competing year-round, but in particular in the northern and Midwest part of the United States, this is our time of year. That's right. We can compete outside. We can put all this hard work that we've been putting in the gym out to the beaches and outside with less clothes on, shirts off, bikinis on, that sort of thing. This is a part of the reward for all the hard work that we've put in throughout the year, whether you're a competitor or you're just trying to get yourself to look good during the summer, which I need a couple more weeks, damn it, but I'm getting there. And I don't mean no six-pack or anything like that. I'm going to fall well short of that. I just want to remove about 10 or 15 more pounds of bloat. And I think I'm on a good path to do that if I can just stay true to that path this weekend, because it's going to be a tough one to negotiate for me. I'll tell you. Highland Games this weekend, Alma Scottish Festival. And I'm looking forward to competing. So I know I'll stay out of trouble Saturday night. I won't eat like crazy. I'm not going to drink any beers or anything. I want to be able to compete and compete well on Sunday because I feel fantastic. It's been 2 years since I've been a part of the Highland Games competition community, simply because I ripped my tricep last year. But I'm back, baby, 100% feeling great, ready to throw and ready to break some personal records or get some personal bests out there on the field on Sunday. So I'm going to make sure I behave myself and give myself the best opportunity to do that on Sunday. So Saturday will be a very easygoing day for me, which actually it should be a lot of fun on Saturday too. I'm going to a rodeo. And for many of you out there that have experienced a rodeo that I've talked to, you love it. It's a lot of fun. It is truly Americana. It's the lifeblood of the middle part of our country. Well, I think maybe they're everywhere, but it certainly is more to, I guess you can say, the red-blooded American types out there, that redneck country boy kind of vibe, or country-ish kind of vibe, and I love it, man. Those are my people. I love to be around that type of community. I love to be a part of events like that. I love that small town America vibe where we have these festivals going on, not just rodeos, but things like the Alma Games at the Scottish Festival and all these other county fairs and all these other events that we have going on. This is just a great time of year, and I try to enjoy as much of that as possible. And this rodeo is going to be one that's been on my list for a while that I have never got a chance to participate in. Well, maybe drink a beer and eat a hot dog. That'll be the extent of it. But I certainly look forward to watching some of this go on and do a lot of good people watching, as many of us do when we go to these type of things. So that's going to be a fun day. It looks like a perfect day, 75 and sunny on Saturday, maybe a little bit of rain on Sunday for my competition, but nothing that's going to scare us off. We compete rain or shine, just like you guys do right now in Strongman, or we always have in the Strongman community. Rain or shine, the show must go on. So yeah, it's going to be a great weekend. Looking forward to that. My girlfriend and I are taking off tomorrow, which is Friday. We'll get an early start, enjoy the hottest day of the weekend, which is tomorrow, just in the sun, and maybe I'll have a couple cocktails then, and then cut it off for Saturday and get back to it Sunday night when I'm partying with the boys after the competition and enjoying the end of the weekend. Of course, many of us have Monday off, so plenty of time to recover, get back in the gym on Monday, and start the week off right and get back to building this summer bod, which I know a lot of you guys out there laughing. That's not a chance. I know. We'll see, though. We'll see. I got a goal in mind. I started at 281. I'm down to 270-ish right now. I really just want to get to like 265, low 260s, and just try to maintain that. Just try to maintain it for the whole summer, if possible, within 2 or 3 pounds. And I know last week we talked about, getting to like a topic of summer and kind of the preparation for that, but more importantly, how we navigate summer and what are the things that a lot of you guys do out there, and some of the things that I do, or at least I'm going to try to do more of this year to give myself a best opportunity to survive summer. But what I'd like to do is actually take that to you guys on social media and do like a Q&A get a lot of your feedback for a lot of summer questions, so I can put a lot of your ideas and a lot of your thoughts into that episode along with mine. And I think maybe we can do just a fun summer episode all about this type of thing, right? Skip the athletes, skip the weights, skip the shows, skip all the other stuff, but keep the gym life into it and what we do in our gym lives throughout that community, and just kind of talk about summer and what we do going into it and what we try to do as we navigate it to keep ourselves together to enjoy it to enjoy it as much as we possibly can, which that's not hard to do, but at least feeling good while we're doing it. I think a lot of us use our gym life as a springboard into summer, to try to get our bodies in great shape, whether that's for competition, because a lot of us, we don't have the luxury of competing throughout like a lot of the United States does, outside all year round. So for many of us, our Strongman season starts now, or our Highland Games season starts now, because we don't get out really outside of our general area, right? The Midwest is maybe a little too cold to compete outside from, I guess you can probably argue, October to April. So a lot of us are chomping at the bit right now to get out there to compete. And many of us have just used our gym life, to get in shape, to look better in the bikini this year, look better on the beach, or at least maybe feel better to do more things in the summer that are maybe more active. Like for myself, I want to do a ton of hiking this year, and try to see some cool sites up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan that I've always kind of wanted to, walk around and see. And I don't mean walk around. I mean, it's a lot of hill climbing, sand dune climbing, negotiating some of the timber and things that are out there in the woods to get some of these sites that are set back that only the strong can survive to see. So maybe we'll get to a lot of that kind of stuff this summer. Nicole and I will, hiking. So I use my gym life for that. But yeah, I think we'll talk about summer as one whole episode. We'll do a really fun summer episode. So hang on tight for that, guys. I know I'm really kind of prefacing it so you guys could get excited about that, because I think that could be a really kind of cool episode. Just kind of see where it goes. You certainly know with my rambling, it could go anywhere. It could really go anywhere. I get myself in trouble with it too. Who knows? I like to put my foot in my mouth sometimes. But not today. I think today we're going to be pretty much straightforward. I watched a show the other day, the PSL event. I want to talk a little bit about that. That was on live stream, some athletes in that show. I got a couple really good questions. You guys have been so interactive with me out there, giving me your feedback and giving me some responses to some of the things that I ask you on Instagram in particular. The Gym Life Podcast, by the way, for those of you out there listening that aren't familiar with the show, go to Instagram, the Gym Life Podcast, and I try to interact with you as much as I can there. Certainly ask you questions, and many of you get back with me and ask me maybe questions for the show or topics and that sort of thing, and I don't want to leave any of them behind. If I don't get to them on any particular show, I'll certainly try to get to them on other shows. And that's kind of what we're going to do here today. I had a couple, so I'm going to cover those questions. Two fairly interesting questions, so hang tight, a little tease for you. And then we're going to talk about some interviews that I have coming up that you guys have reached out and asked me, hey, when am I going to start interviewing some people again? Being a little bit more particular about that, kind of going into this new era, I like to call it. Not that I don't think that everybody out there in our community has something interesting to say and we should talk to them, but I kind of want to do it in spurts, do a few of these kind of not as a normal episode, but just more or less a very specific interview for a specific reason. One of them, of course, is going to be talking about mastering strongman with Mike Lohman and Ken McClelland. I'm actually about halfway through the book. By the way, oh my God, great book. You know what I love the most about this book, Mastering Strongman, is it's like, I don't even know how to describe it. Maybe some of you more bigger readers out there, there's probably a name for this, but it's very first person, very interactive. It's almost like they're having a conversation with me right in the room. The way they're kind of explaining, just this, they're answering my questions as they're kind of popping into my head as they would in a conversation with somebody. So it's very detailed like that. It almost is kind of is checking the boxes before I even have a chance to ask the question, which I love because it's really conversative like that, and it's full of just a lot of like fun narrative that lends to kind of the path of getting down going down this mastering strongman path to continue or to maybe start your competitive lifestyle within the strongman community, and they're answering a lot of questions that a lot of people not just some of the seasoned vets would have, or some people that have been in the sport a while, but also newcomers, because I love hearing kind of people's take on this sort of thing. And Ken and Mike have lent a lot of great insight to answering a lot of these questions from a very first-person narrative, which I love, if that's the right way to say it. I'm not a big book reader, guys, but I know there's a way to say that, and maybe you guys understand what I'm saying. But get Mastering Strongman, check it out. It's just a great read. Matter of fact, if you're just in Strongman, it's a great read. Certainly you're going to need it someday, and it's just kind of a reminder how to get things done, because I would say a lot of things in that book pertain to all of us. I would say 80% of the book, honestly, pertains to all of us, whether we're a master getting into Strongman or just a guy or gal out there that wants to get into the sport and enjoy it, and have themselves kind of a template, if you will, to figure out kind of how to do that without making a lot of the mistakes first. So yeah, Mastering Strongman. I reached out to Mike and Ken. We're trying to figure that out. They had a big press seminar with Nick Camby last weekend. I was really hoping to maybe find a way to get down there and get them both in the same room and interview them at the same time, to kind of avoid maybe doing a video call type interview. Not as easy as I was hoping it would be. I wasn't able to do that on short notice, but we're going to get an interview with them nonetheless, whether it's got to be a vid call interview, or maybe perhaps there's another time and day that Ken and Mike might be in this general area that we can get them together to do that. I'd love to do more interviews for you guys in person, as opposed to doing everything on a vid call. If time and resources allow, I'm certainly going to try to make that happen. Another interview that I'm going to get to is going to be my annual Great Lakes Strongest Man interview with George Bullard, the promoter of the Great Lakes Strongest Man. You guys know that every year I like to get with George to talk to him about what's new and what's shaking up there in Traverse City when it comes to the Great Lakes Strongest Man, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, strongman event in the United States outside of nationals for the amateur and now pro strongman community. So as many of you know out there, I've touted this show for years, and for good reason. It's become an international competition now, and George grows this show exponentially every single year with new apparatus, with new athletes, of course, new pro athletes, just new added pageantry to this show every year in Turtle Creek Stadium. There in Traverse City, Michigan, which is a destination of its own. Just to go up there to vacation and to be up there while the show's going on is a great opportunity. So we encourage everybody to check out Great Lakes Strongest Man. But I want you to check out that interview with George, because it's a great interview. It's a fun interview. We do one every single year, and I know you guys love it here in the Great Lakes community to hear what George has got to say. And of course, he's a very charismatic person, and he always lends a lot of great fun to those interviews. So we're going to get that set up before too long. Again, Memorial Day weekend kind of kicks off summer, and now we can start thinking about Great Lakes Strongest Man a little more in the forefront because it's in September, of course, kind of finishing off our summer. And for many of you out there trying to plan your summer, boy, if you haven't figured it out yet, you best get to it, like this weekend, because there's a lot going on. Battle of the Beach, July 13th. That's the next show that I'm going to be at. And that's going to be a great show there with Nick O'Hare at Harbor Beach, Michigan. That's on the east side of the state, Lake Huron. I'll be commentating and live streaming that show and being a part of the festivities over a couple days. And it looks like that show's starting to fill up a little bit more too, which I love to see because, again, a lot of these summer shows are just great opportunities for, well, vacations or weekend getaways, whether it be with your family or with your girlfriend or whoever it is, or maybe by yourself, just to get away and enjoy some of these communities, because there's always something going on. And Harbor Beach Days, I think they're called. Are they Harbor Beach Days? I think they are Harbor Beach Days. So Nick is a part of that, a big event, which is going to lend that many more people spectating the sport we love so dearly and getting more eyes on it and eyes on you competitors. And yeah, you never know what'll shake loose, right? Maybe a sponsor's watching or something. So yeah, we'll talk about a couple more shows too coming up. But one show that passed, let me grab a quick drink here. I'm drying up. One show that passed over the weekend, I have a couple of these notes written down in several spots, so bear with me, was the Pro Strongman League 105s and 82s. That's the 105 men and 82 women. And I was looking forward to the show. That was a big lineup, a lot of new faces in the 105 class. I got a chance to pop in and see some of it here and there. Caught a lot of it, of course, on social media as well. And one of my friends and somebody who I interviewed last year, maybe a year and a half ago now, is Nick Hine. And Nick, as many of you know, is a perennial contender in just about every show he's ever been a part of. I know he's podiumed at OSG. He's a podiumed at America's Strongest Man. And Nick Hine won the PSL 105s, which was great to see. Welcome back, Nick. And what a great performance. Pretty close. I think there was who was right behind him. It was I think it was Sam Risling. Is that the way you pronounce it? Risling. He came in second, just a couple points behind Nick. And it was a big lineup. Isaac Mays, many of you know Isaac Mays. He won the first Clash on the Coast back 4 years ago now. Isaac's been a perennial contender in just about every show that he does, which isn't a lot these days. I did a great interview with Isaac as well from Saskatchewan, and he's really, really busy guy out there. You got to watch the interview. I'm surprised he does any strongman shows, to be honest with you. But the ones Isaac does, he generally competes in, and what I mean by that is either winning or very close to the podium. This particular show, he was set up to actually win the show. Well, I say that right. I mean, well, he was set up to give himself the best opportunity to do that. Sadly, after the first day, he was in first place, and then he tore his Achilles tendon, which sucks. And I'm starting to see that injury come about quite a bit, actually. Panda, my good friend, Christine Matthews, who I commentated the Great Lakes with and have known throughout the strongman community with a lot of things that I've done and been participated in, like many of you out there, also tore her Achilles tendon. So Panda, my heart's out to you, and for a speedy recovery, of course. But man, what a shitty injury. I know Nick dropped a frame carry on the back of his ankle at the PSL, and of course that was probably a big scare for him as well. That's one way to tear an Achilles tendon. And then of course Trey Mitchell did it. I think 6-7 months ago. That was the injury that he was coming off of to come back to World's Strongest Man. I guess it went really well, and Chad Coy and him were very happy about his performance. Didn't get to the finals, of course, but coming off an Achilles injury like that, particularly in strongman, because we have so many moving events now, not everything's as static as it used to be. The Achilles tendon is a bitch of an injury, and from what I understand, for many of you out there, the recovery isn't that. Well, it doesn't go as well as you hope it would. And I know we lose a lot of guys and gals in the strongman community permanently due to Achilles tendon injuries and the lack of being able to get those injuries back to 100% to allow these guys and gals to compete again. So, best wishes to Panda. Best wishes to Isaac Mays for their tendon tears in the last couple weeks here. Congratulations to Nick Hine. Nick, of course, was going to make a run at that podium regardless. I know that he probably would have rather had Isaac there with him. Of course, nobody likes to see people get injured in this sport. We always want to give our best to the best. And I know that those guys in that competition missed the opportunity to take out Isaac before he took himself out. So, yeah, that sucks, man. Injuries like that. As many of you know, I tore my tricep last year. Not the worst injury to come back from. So I'm grateful that the injuries that I've sustained in my career have not kept me out like a lot of them do, a lot of folks out there, because I couldn't imagine not being able to compete, or at least think about competing. Whether I get to it again or not, at least I know my body's not going to get in my way if I can just keep myself from getting other injuries that maybe would. Not an easy thing to do when you get older. Injuries come, man. These guys aren't spring chickens anymore. They've been at it a while. And I think I made mention to you guys once before that the average length of a strongman competitive career is like 2.5 years. So for many of you out there who have been in the sport for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 plus years, you look at guys like Nick Best, for God's sake, competing as far into his career that he has. I just use him as the prime example, or Mark Felix, where they've been 20 plus years. That by itself is an amazing accomplishment, because again, for many of us, 2.5 years is the lifespan of a competitive strongman. They generally don't make it much further, and for large part, it's because injury gets in the way. So there are a lot of ways to mitigate that nowadays, because there's a lot of good information out there that is being shared with us to maybe avoid that sort of thing. But a lot of these things are fluky. And the way they happen is something that you've done 1,000 times, then for whatever reason that was the ideal circumstance for something to break down or give you problems. And a lot of guys and gals we don't see again. And I think for good reason. That sport doesn't pay a lot of money. There's not a lot of reason to come back from an injury if you feel like it could set you back in real life. And that means take you out of work where you can't pay your bills or causes more problems in your personal life. Yeah, getting an injury fucking sucks. Certainly for many of you guys out there that are moving around and can't sit behind your computer all day to get your job done, boy, you get yourself hurt in strongman. Yeah, boy, it's something that, we hope never happens to anybody. Certainly for those that, require their ability to move to get around in normal life. What I mean by that is their job. No good, man, no good. So I have a feeling 2.5 years is often predicated by guys and gals getting injured or just deciding that maybe they've done enough and they checked a few boxes on their to-do list as far as competing in some competitions and got out before those injuries happened. That's worth a conversation. Maybe Mike and Ken could shed a little more light on some of those statistics as well, because knowing being master strongmen themselves and writing that book, I no doubt that they looked at a lot of those statistics and thought, boy, how are we going to keep people competing at an older age before they break down or get around the idea of allowing certain situations to happen and that cause a lot of injury to these folks, whether you're young or old. It doesn't even matter anymore, does it? The weights are getting crazy out there. That's why. I mean, holy moly. Not that we have any problem with that. That's why they call it strongman. But asking guys to negotiate and gals to negotiate heavy weight while they're moving has always been that, oh boy, that elephant in the room when it comes to strongman. Like, what is there a point where sometimes promoters might be asking too much, or are we asking too much of ourselves as athletes in the strongman community to perform certain tasks under weight that otherwise might, cause us or put us in a situation where we can be injured? That's a tough question. I know a lot of you guys would answer that question with a tough attitude, like, fuck it, if you're not cut out to do it, don't do it. But you got to ask yourself from what do they call it? From a physiological standpoint, as a lot of the things that we do in strongman is the human body really meant to do it? And a perfect example is the yoke, right? Having 1,100, 1,200 pounds for many of us in the heavyweight class. That's not a weight nowadays that is something that we wouldn't see, where it's pretty common. Or to be able to flip a tire that's 800 or 900 pounds. I know we've gotten away from certain events because they've caused injury, but to imagine like 1,100 pounds on your back and you're trying to walk with it, right? It used to be a lot just to squat 1,100 pounds, which of course is still a lot. But the idea now of moving your hips and negotiating that kind of weight, pressing down in your back, I think it leaves room to question. I don't think it's really much difficult of an answer, is it? A lot of the things that we do in strongman, we probably shouldn't do from a health and longevity perspective. But like many things we do in our lives, we'll deal with the consequences later, right? And that certainly holds true for a lot of us, unfortunately, in the sport of strongman that maybe aren't training it right, doing it right, recovering correctly, or a number of things that ultimately leads to a sustained injury that takes you out of the sport, or maybe even takes you out of a lot of things that you do in real life too, sadly. It did for me for a while. When I hurt my hip, I dragged my leg for years. Of course, now a hip replacement, I get back into it. Now I got a decision to make. Do I get into competitions again, or do I walk away with a good hip and say, okay, I'm good. I don't need another hip replacement. That's hard to do because we're all a little fucked up in the head. I think about it every single day. Man, I got to get back to competing. I got to get back into another show. Maybe that's when you look at certain shows as an older competitor or as a competitor that you've maybe gotten injured in the past, and you try to stay away from events that might be too taxing on a particular body part that you're having trouble with. That'd be the first thing that I would recommend to anybody out there, is that if you're having problems with something, maybe that's a tricep or a bicep, or and I'm not talking just like a temporary injury, something that you tweaked in training, because if that happened, you should just stay away from it entirely. But something that maybe you've been dealing with, that's been chronic for a long time in your life, it might be a good idea to stay away from certain strongman events. I wouldn't blame you a lick. I mean, there are things that I look at now and go, okay, what events don't I really want to do? Well, with my hip, I don't think I want to do a 1,000-pound yoke walk. I can tell you right now, Farmers is enough. to try to negotiate that and moving with that sort of weight. Certainly now I look at my tricep to go, okay, I know it's healed properly, but boy, should I stay away from a keg press? That's something that I injured my tricep on. That's what it did. It ripped it off the bone. So yeah, I don't know. And maybe that's another look at me, guys. All these different ideas about different topics for the show are coming to me right now all of a sudden. I think these are things that we'd all kind of want to talk about. But one of the big topics would be, are we really asking ourselves, are we pushing ourselves too far in certain events in strongman? I begs the question. I'm not saying I'm a big wimp about it. I'm not. I did them all with you guys for years and years and years. But I think in hindsight, did we do too much? Are we setting ourselves up for disaster later in life? Or are we just pushing the envelope too far right now in strongman when it comes to certain events and certain apparatus that competitors are being asked to do? And is it setting themselves up? And I don't mean for failure from a point of view of losing a competition, but setting themselves up for physical failure. Is something ready to blow or bust? And that, I tell you, that's an interesting question. I'd be real curious what you guys think about that. So anyhow, that was a little bit of a there you go, guys, off on a rant, a tangent, something that I had no one didn't think I was going to talk about. Now I got to make up for some time here. All right, let me think here. So getting back to PSL, one name that stands out in that event that I really, boy, she's got my attention. Jessica Mitchell, you got my attention. Great job at PSL. First off, anytime you get to beat Nadia Stowers, who's a perennial contender in every single show that she's ever did, and arguably had her best year 2 years ago, that world beating, of course, and still podiums at just about every show she gets to. And I love Nadia. She's a great competitor, and we haven't seen her best days yet. They're still coming, but she's certainly been a representative of that podium in the 82 class for several years now. Now you see Jessica Mitchell come up, to no surprise. Jessica, you've done it yourself. You had, a second place at America's Strongest Woman, a second place at OSG. I think at ASM you were in the 82s, and you were at OSG in the 73s. But now the rumblings are, and you even said it yourself, heavyweight open or open competition at America's Strongest Woman this year. Is that a possibility for you? Or was it nationals? I think it was nationals. Wouldn't that be fun to see? Because Jessica Mitchell is a beast, everybody. She's a freaking beast. Some of the highlights of the show for me was her axle press. I think it was a 270-pound axle she put up, but not just the weight of the axle. She is proficient in her form. That split jerk was amazing. Not only that, she's super athletic. She's super strong. She's super dynamic. I mean, Jessica Mitchell, hey, girl, you got our attention for sure. For many of us out there, we've been keeping an eye on you for a couple years, but I got a sneaky suspicion this is the year of Jessica Mitchell. She's been knocking out that door for a couple years now, and PSL might have been her coming out party. So yeah, it was good to see. It was a lot of fun to see. Strong woman nationals, heavyweight open. Yeah, I think you could handle that, to answer your question that you posed on Instagram that I listened to in your story. She was a lot of fun to watch. That was kind of the highlight of the show for me a little bit. As far as competitors go, of course, there are many other competitors out there. I brought up Nick, of course, and what happened to Isaac, and a couple other guys that I mentioned in the last show that I was looking forward to watching. But those guys in particular were the highlight of the show for me. That's Nick and Jessica. Of course, they podium first place. But the show itself, once again, was just a great representative of a great promotion in the strongman community. And I don't say that because Tyler Purdue is a good friend of mine. I say it because I'm truthful and honest about the shows that I see out there. And again, this show continues to produce over and over and over again. In any PSL event for that matter, the backdrop of Virginia Beach was amazing. I loved it. The actual events moved around a bit from in front of the beach and on the road to under a pavilion. I had a lot of different spectating perspectives for people watching the event that were right there. It also made for a real cool live stream. Of course, everybody they put in place to be a part of this show, as I've mentioned in previous shows, they're top notch. So that was a lot of fun to see. I love the squat. You guys see the squat apparatus? It was World's Strongest Man type, right? Had the two big barrels on the ends of it. It was a mammoth bar, I believe. It was 370 pounds for the ladies and 600 pounds for the men. Too light. Let's raise the weight next time, Tyler. That was too light, but it was amazing. And maybe it was more, I should say, these competitors are getting so good at squatting, which is not something we generally say in the strongman community. I know there are a lot of good squatters out there by default, but it's not generally something you train in the gym a lot. Maybe Hatfield type squats. A lot of guys and gals do those on the safety squat bar. But squatting itself is not something many strongmen are super proficient at. But the type of reps that these guys were putting up, what was it? I think Nick got 20 reps. I don't even know if he won the event, but 20 reps at 600 pounds. That's pretty amazing. I get it. Some of you guys would argue, well, there's a, they're not going below depth. It's a set depth. Yeah, I get it. Can you bounce that? I probably wouldn't. Don't try to bounce a mammoth bar. That weight's going to send you all over the place. So I wouldn't say that's the case at all. Yeah, is maybe a bit easier than doing 600 pounds in the gym 19 times, 20 times, no doubt about it. But we're still talking about 600 pounds on our back, and we're talking about 20 fucking reps. That's crazy. Kim Baum for the ladies did 370 19 times. Yeah, so we need to raise the weight a little bit, challenge these competitors a little bit more, and that's to no fault of Tyler and the promotion. That's just one of those things that you scratch your head after the fact, go, yeah, maybe I should have raised that weight up a little bit. But you don't know until you get there sometimes. And now we know probably going into future competitions that we'll see 650, 700 pounds, and then maybe even more in the 400, 450 range for the gals. Although I think I recall, what was it, Clash? 2 years ago or 3 years ago in South Carolina had the same apparatus. Love seeing it there, but they had a lot of trouble with that. Maybe that was 700 pounds. Maybe that was the decision to go 600 here at this particular event. But I think the real problem at Clash was there was an uneven ground there. I think some of the guys, I heard some murmurings, that was a difficult part about that squat at Clash, was the ground wasn't as even as they would have liked it to be. Because certainly a lot of those guys, based on this show of 600 pounds for 19, 20 reps, could have easily negotiated 700 for a few. And I know there are a lot of guys at Clash that zeroed that event, which was very weird because these guys were the top of the food chain when as far as the 105 class goes. Didn't expect to see that at all. Matter of fact, I think maybe 2 or 3 reps won the event, which is really weird. So in your defense, Tyler, I think maybe we know why that bar was set at 600, but maybe that just means guys are getting better at it too. So we'll see. So yeah, Jessica Mitchell, Nick Hine, Kim Baum mentioned that one. The show itself, really, really cool. Looking forward to more PSL events. And again, my goal is to get to one this year and have some fun with those guys. So first question that I had, I probably should have did this in the beginning, right? Keep you guys' attention a little bit, was, and let's see here. I'm going to look for my notes because this is important. Yeah, it's amateur judging. I had a comment about amateur judging, about how it sucks, I guess. I can't remember the verbatim, right? I'm paraphrasing. Problem with amateur judging, we need to get it better. Yeah, it's a tough one, man. It's a tough one. I'm going to answer that on both sides of my mouth. How about that? You're not wrong. Amateur judging is not the best in the world. But let me remind you, it's an amateur competition. However, I get it. In any competition, you should have fair and consistent judging. That I totally agree. The problem is with strongman is there's no standards. So to find judges, first off, that are capable of judging every event efficiently is not an easy thing to do because our sport doesn't have standards. We don't have standard events, and we certainly don't have standard apparatus. So that makes it a little bit difficult at times because in any sport, like, well, let's just use powerlifting as the best example. We have judging because the apparatus are only 3 and they're the same, right? I mean, in every single show, there's not different types of deadlifting. There's not different types of benching and squatting or other events that would, of course, take place in strongman. So that's a problem to me, and you can certainly see that. Sometimes the judges aren't athletes. That's a problem. That's probably a solvable problem. I've been to events where the judges aren't athletes. I don't think you can judge fairly and consistently if you're not an athlete or have not performed that type of event. And I think many of us in the strongman community, it wouldn't be difficult at a competition that is to find many of us in the strongman community that have done enough events that we've probably seen it and done it all. And that's very important when it comes to lockouts and how we anticipate a lockout and what we want to see. We're not going to let guys and gals hold the weight longer than they have to. We know how difficult that's been on us in competition when we were judged. So we wouldn't create those, I make those same mistakes twice, right? So very, very important to have athletes, whether past or present, that are your judges in these competitions. So note to promoters, make sure that, and generally that does happen, but make sure that happens. The other thing is, of course, they don't get paid. They don't get paid. So if you want standardized judging, you want guys and gals to become proficient at judging, and I get it. In large part, we do the sport and we judge the sport and we participate in the sport because we love the sport. But you know what? There's got to be some incentive behind it too, right? To be a good judge, to be welcome back. I mean, a t-shirt doesn't always do it, and I'm not suggesting promoters have any extra money to throw around. But to be able to throw a judge $100, $120, $150, doesn't have to be much, right? Gas money, here's a gift card to Applebee's, whatever it is. Maybe your sponsors can cover it. It always does, right? You guys know what kind of work you get for free. Everybody does. Don't ever expect somebody to work hard if they're working for free. Now, again, I know that becomes down to more of an ethical thing, right? I mean, to be able to do your job no matter what. But listen, we know the truth. I mean, their attention span's this big. Most judges, these shows are 5 or 6 hours long. To keep an attention span that long through 30 or 40 or 50 competitors per class, per event, not an easy thing to ask anybody to do, let alone somebody who's working for free. So, yeah, I would say attention span is a tough thing to keep with judges. And if they don't have any incentive to do it, and I'm not suggesting they're doing it on purpose, it just kind of takes away from maybe the professionalism that you would otherwise get if you were to have, a number of things, right? Standardized judging, athletes judging, and giving somebody a little compensation for the work that they're doing, putting in a full day's work at one of these events. Whether you're doing it out of the charity of your heart or not, I don't think anybody out there wants to spend 8-10 hours from the time, an hour before rules and an hour after the show ends, and not be, again, guys, I'm not trying to be an asshole here, but to be compensated somehow. I mean, make it worth their while anyhow. Give them something. Have some sponsors put some gift baskets together for them or something. They should be treated like that because they're a very important component of any event is to have judges that are engaged and know what they're doing. In order to keep those judges coming back at every show and or reaching out to you or you them, it's because they appreciate not only the show itself and the community, but they appreciate what the promoters do for them. So keep that in mind. All you guys out there getting your judges together. Don't forget your judges. Take care of your judges. But I will say, I commentate shows, as you know, and I do my live stream, which is not ADL, but I put a camera up and I try to give you guys a good free perspective for these shows, and I try to lend my commentary to them, and I try to engage you guys through every bit of that show. But even in my own defense, I lose my fire through part of it because it turns into a long event. And sometimes I take a break. I'll say, listen, guys, I'll be back in 15 minutes. I'm going to take a break, especially when we're just kicking off an event and it's a Wessel's Rule type event or something. And you're not going to see anything big happen till the end of it. But judges don't have that luxury. They can't do what I do. And I shouldn't do it either, don't get me wrong. But if I'm commentating for 5 or 6 hours, boy, it is hard to keep your interest sometimes. As much as I love the sport, and you guys know I love the sport, but it's hard to keep your interest sometimes. So they're not able to maybe take those breaks. In between events is not taking a break, by the way. Sometimes you just need to get your eyes off it, take a deep breath, and do something different for a minute. In their defense, I understand why a lot of guys and gals would lose their attention a little bit. Certainly if the other criteria that I just mentioned wasn't met, that's taking care of your judges. So, yeah, and I think the last thing I'll say on that is that if you've got a sport that wants to be a legitimate sport like Strongman, right? We struggle with this all the time because we're still a niche sport. We're not an organized sport, guys. No matter what you think, we're not that organized. We have 2 federations, which we both, right? You and my one listener out there, we all could agree we probably only need 1 federation to kind of organize all this for us, to try to set some standards for us. But I think it's the organization's responsibility, whether it's 1, 2, or 10, to try to set standards in judging as well. just like USAPL and USPA and WRPF and the number of bodybuilding MPC and IFBB and the list goes on, OCB and all these different organizations, they all have certain criteria for their judging. And they make these judges, they make them earn their ability, their credentials, right? I don't think strongman should be any different at some point. It's not difficult to get 4, 5, 10 guys and gals in the state of Michigan, for instance, to become judges that should be representing at all shows to make shows legitimate. I think at some point, strongman community, the strongman itself throughout the United States, and let's just talk about the United States, strongman at some point has to standardize judging. I didn't say standardize events. I said standardize judging. Judges should be people that we're familiar with, that have a record of good judging, that have done some type of credential building that has allowed them to become the top of the food chain when it comes to judging any event and having the ability to negotiate any type of apparatus with some common sense and some engagement. I think we need that in our sport. And maybe we'll get there. Maybe we won't. Maybe there's some things that are just too much to ask for. But I think judging itself needs to be something that probably does need to be addressed a little bit more. Listen, we even see it at a higher level. Even at World's Strongest Man a couple years ago with that circus dumbbell and the way they judged those lockouts. Not real good. Not real good at all. I think we were all pretty disappointed with some of these calls that we saw. And at that level, we should never see that. So I think it's something that it's been working to be corrected overall. I know Magnus for Magnuson now is becoming a bigger part of the judging community at the top level as the head judge of World's Strongest Man and bettering that part of the organization. And I love to see that because we have to have that hierarchy when it comes to judging as well. Bobby Thompson's an example at Pro Strongman League. He's the head judge at every Pro Strongman League event. So you know what you're getting going into that show. And I believe most of their judges at that particular show are generally the same judges or try to be the same judges at every event or every promotion they throw. So we are seeing some consistency there, but we need to do a better job of it as a whole. So I would encourage all you from all the states around the United States that have a strong foothold within the strongman community is try to establish some judging consistency. Try to talk to the other promoters in the state and come up with a consensus of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 different guys and gals that fit that mold of being a good engaged and a quality judge, somebody that's able to, give you the same effort and quality in one show as they could every other show. And then that would start building some consistency. So I encourage all you guys in your states to, look around and try to come up with a short list of judges that all of you would agree would be a great component to your events. And fair and honest judging and people that are engaged and can lend some consistency to all these promotions. And I think you guys are going to see a big turnaround in how guys and gals, are going to respond to that and how they feel about that. Certainly when they go to the promotion, there's not going to be any questions when it comes to the type of judging or at least against their performance that they anticipate that they would get. I see that at Great Lakes as well, by the way. Great Lakes, George Bullard, it's worth noting. He's one of the better promoters with one of the bigger events, like Tyler Purdue at PSL. Generally, they're the same judges every year. I know Sean Shoemaker comes back every single year to judge, and you others as well, not to leave out anybody's name. But, he tries to be consistent because those competitors know what they're getting year in and year out. There you go. That's my take on judging. That was a great point to bring up. Although I think it was a point that amateur judging sucks, which in large part you're not entirely wrong. But I think there's some reasons why. And I think if you were to look at it from some of those perspectives that I just gave you, maybe you can give those guys a little bit of grace that are doing it now, but hold your promoters accountable. Don't be mad at the judges. Unless there was a one-off situation that maybe they deserved a little ribbon for it, but hold your promoters accountable to have good judging. And if you're noticing an event that doesn't have good judging, bring it to your promoter's attention at the end of the show. Don't do it during the show. It's just not worth it, guys. It's too much stress and headache, and it's just not the right time to bring it up. But when the show completes, make sure that you have that conversation with these promoters, because I promise you, many of them aren't paying attention to every little detail because there's a lot of moving parts at these shows that are going on. And if you were just to bring up the idea that maybe some judges didn't get the job done or some things should have been judged differently, these promoters will take note. And the changes, of course, should be made. We hope. Okay, that was a fun topic, I think. I think that was worth a deeper conversation, but we'll stop right there. I want to talk real quick about a couple shows that I saw coming up, and then we'll move on to another question. Or maybe we'll do the question first. Let me grab a drink of water. Let's do back-to-back questions. It's probably not a bad idea. I'll lose your interest in this next question if I don't do it sooner. All right, lemonade is going down smooth. So I got a question about it wasn't a question, it was a comment. Because you guys know I try to give fair love to every sport in the gym life as much as I can. I know I lean really heavy, biasly towards strength, and then I lean even heavier towards strongman. However, I do bring up bodybuilding, Highland Games. I even occasionally bring up CrossFit and have been a part of those events, as many of you know, at the Great Lakes. But bodybuilding gets gets a lot of love from many of us that are lifelong gym lifers, right? Because we appreciate it. I made mention of that to you guys about 2 or 3 shows ago where, listen, we all started as bodybuilders. Every one of us did. So I have an appreciation for the sport above and beyond that as well when it comes to not only me starting in the sport of bodybuilding, but the idea that a lot of my friends that continued on in the sport, and I championed them on, of course. But some of you guys are very cynical about bodybuilding. I was trying to preface that as best I could. Bodybuilding, what's there to like? I got that comment from a strongman. No surprise, right? Strongman / powerlifter. Bodybuilding, what is there to like? I kind of laughed out loud at that a little bit. LOL. Yeah, I mean, that's worth thinking about, right? But I went a little bit deeper than probably the answer, right? Well, I like the physiques and all that stuff. That's the obvious answer. Or I like maybe their training programs or their progressive resistance, or I like maybe some of the characters that are involved in the sport. Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler and Lee Priest, some of my favorites. Of course, I like those people. There's great personalities in the sport. There's great characters in the sport. There's great commentary in the sport. Watching and reading magazines and workouts and all the things that kind of lent to all the programs that we've built over the years is a great thing about the sport. I think we can go on and on what we like about bodybuilding, even as a non-bodybuilder, as a fan of bodybuilding. But what I love the most about bodybuilding are these 3 things. Dedication. Dedication. If you can't appreciate the dedication of a bodybuilder and what they go through for their sport to perform at any level, not just the top of the food chain, but even in the lowest amateur ranks of bodybuilding, the dedication of these athletes is absolutely amazing. Don't you sit there for a minute, you powerlifter or strongman, and tell me you are more dedicated than what a bodybuilder is. I will give that to you equal to in many, many areas of the sport. But when it comes to preparation to compete, there is nobody more dedicated than a bodybuilder because they just don't have to worry about lifting weights and getting big or getting strong or just getting big, right? Not strong. They got to worry about all the other facets of the sport that they're judged on, which is diet and lifestyle. Bodybuilders have the most dedication because of their lifestyle, of their diet, and the things that they have to do to position themselves to win, to get their bodies in the best physical representative of themselves. Is not an easy task. We don't have that to worry about in the strength sports, in large part. I get it. Some of you guys out there are going to argue, well, wait a minute, I cut for my shows and I do this for my show. Oh, bullshit. You only cut because you're sloppy in the off season. A lot of you 105ers shouldn't be walking around at 270 trying to cut to 105 anyhow, or 260 or 250. Many are heavyweights that don't want to be heavyweights. So don't give me that nonsense. And even when you do cut, it's generally a pretty quick water cut. Yeah, do they suck? Absolutely, they suck. It's 2 weeks of hell for many of you to drop 20 pounds to put it all back on the day of the show. But bodybuilders don't have that luxury. Their dedication to their diet and lifestyle, it's 100%. It's not a 90-10 rule or an 80-20 rule. Bodybuilders, they live it year in, year out, day in and day out. I mean, I know this because of my pro friends that I speak with frequently and have talked about what they do and have been a part of their, I guess you can say, their journey for a significant enough time to know that it's not just contest prep anymore, or was it ever for that matter. It's kind of the way we always recognized it, right? Many of us outside the sport will, well, they only do that for 12 or 16 or 20 or 24 weeks. Oh, bullshit. They do it year round. I mean, a cheat meal to a bodybuilder is still rice and chicken, guys. It's not a pizza generally, maybe after the show for that one day. But for the majority of their year leading up and competing and being in and around shows, getting ready for them or coming off of them, they are maintaining a lifestyle and a dedication to that lifestyle unrivaled by anybody in the gym, and certainly in the competition community. Now, training, I'll give you every bit of that in every sport that we talk about. CrossFit, powerlifting, Highland Games, strongman, bodybuilding, we all train at a very high level. But the room for error with a bodybuilder is so minute when it comes to the way that they have to get to where they need to go and be at the highest level that they can be at. They have very little margin for error. So the dedication of bodybuilders, to me, is one of the things that I like most about bodybuilding. I can go on and on with that. Honestly, I could. My brain is like going all around that right now because it is crazy. And I acknowledge that. It's absolutely freaking crazy what those guys and gals will do. It's nuts. It's incomprehensible for many of us. Many of us will just sit back and talk about it like it's not a big deal. I could do that too. No, you can't. No, you can't. There's a reason. I mean, and there's a lot of reasons, but there's a main reason many of you out there could never be bodybuilders. It's because you can't diet. You have no self-discipline like that. You cannot get that job done. It is the select few people that have the type of constitution when it comes to maintaining the lifestyle that bodybuilders maintain. So that is one of the big reasons I love bodybuilding. Their dedication is surpassed by nobody. Second thing I like about bodybuilders is patience. Bodybuilders are patient. They're patient people. The strength community, we're not patient at all. We're not. Contest calls for a 700-pound yoke, and I've never run a 700-pound yoke. 3 weeks into contest prep, I'm trying to run a 700-pound yoke. I'm trying to put everything ahead as quickly as possible when it comes to strongman. And we all have done it, guys. Don't tell me you haven't. But powerlifting, no different. A bit more control. There's a bit more patience there. But, there's always ways that we try to circumvent, I don't want to say the work that's put in, but the timeline that a lot of this work takes. Because we have the luxury to change our lifestyle. If we wanted to compete heavier tomorrow, we could. We don't have to worry about the way our physiques look. So that patience isn't required so much for strength athletes as it is for, let's say, a bodybuilder. In large part because we don't have to worry about the parameters of competition when it comes to the way we look to compete. It's the way we perform. Bodybuilders don't have that luxury. So patience is another thing that I love bodybuilders. That's another reason why I put them I put them in high regard when it comes to being a part of our gym community, because that's something a lot of us don't possess. I'm not saying we're all void of it. I try to be as patient as I can be, and maybe getting older, I'm more and more patient than I was when I was a younger guy lifting and being in strongman. No doubt about it. I mean, listen, my attention span is way better, and I have a lot of patience. But for a lot of you young guys and gals out there competing in strongman and the strength sports, you have no patience. You have none. You have to be reminded to have patience every day by your coach. I guarantee it. But bodybuilders, however, they're very, very patient people. They're introverts. They're very patient. They're reclusive type people that, live in their own sort of private bubble of life, and they're very patient to know where their goals are at and what they need to do to get there. And for many of them, when you talk to them, they don't give you a 6-month goal. They give you a 3-year goal, a 2-year goal. Are you crazy? I mean, think about that. What kind of patience does it take to give yourself a 2 and 3 year goal? Where a lot of us in the strength community, we don't look at it in those type of increments. We look at it in like 3 and 6 month increments, maybe a year for some of us, but bodybuilders don't. In large part, when they're talking about their overall physique, they're giving you timelines of 1, 2, 3 years, and the type of patience it takes to continue to have the dedication to live the lifestyle that is required to get you there. Boy, that's patience. Patience for sure. And the third reason that I like bodybuilding and bodybuilders, men and women in general, is humility. Yeah, I know what some of you are thinking. It's maybe a hard one to talk around. They are humble, by the way. I know they get a bad rap, right, for this arrogance, this ego, this sort of fuck you look in the gym, right? That a lot of you guys don't like the bodybuilders and the way they move around to get their work done and get their jobs done. I get it. I've seen them. I've felt that way in the past myself. And a younger version of me used to go, look at those bodybuilders. Not anymore. And I'll tell you why, because I've got to know a couple of them very, very well. And it's humility, because talking to these guys, I realize that they're introverted, and that reclusiveness or that arrogance that you think that they're putting off, they have no care in the world what the fuck you're doing or what you're thinking of them, as many of us should feel and think like in all of our sports, or whether we compete or not for that matter. But bodybuilders in particular have a ton of humility. And maybe I was getting off on a tangent with that a little bit, the way I'm trying to approach this, so you guys can maybe get a vibe for what I'm trying to lay out here, is that if you're a competitive bodybuilder, or you choose to be competitive, now we're talking about competitive bodybuilders here, guys, you have to have a ton of humility, because in order for you to become a good bodybuilder, you have to put yourself in front of a lot of people all the time in some of those earlier days and those earlier competitions that the untrained eye would see you and go, what are you even doing on stage? And it's not that a lot of these guys and gals want to put themselves in a position to be, to be looked at in that light. It's simply because they understand the experience and the experience and the journey it takes to become a good bodybuilder. And it takes a ton of humility to do that. You have to be able to put yourself out there in front of people and to realize that you're going to be humbled, that you're going to step out on stage in your first or second or third bodybuilding show. For many of them, I get there's some one-offs out there, probably should have competed long before they competed in their first show, and probably were told not to because of the type of criteria that was being put on them in order for them to compete. I don't necessarily agree with that. Maybe that's a different conversation. But many of them, because they love the sport and they're not trying to be pro bodybuilders, they're just trying to continuously try to better themselves. They put themselves in these precarious positions of competition to be able to be judged and to be able to put themselves next to competition so they continue to get better. And that's what I love about bodybuilders as well, is there's a certain degree of humility that I don't think they're given enough credit for, because many of them put themselves in positions to be judged against some very tough competition sometimes, just so they can take a critique of themselves to get back in the gym and continue to work harder and to get better. So those are the three reasons I like bodybuilding. And there's more to that, of course. But I wanted to take that into a different direction. Dedication, patience, and humility. That's why I love my friends in the bodybuilding community. That's why I will never do bodybuilding, because I don't think I have, well, maybe 1.5 of those, to be honest with you. I'll say I got 1 3/4. My dedication is not what it used to be. I have no patience, and I have a decent amount of humility. But bodybuilders, in order to be good, require all three. So yeah, that's my question, or my answer, or my comment to that part of the Q&A. Excuse me. That was a couple good ones. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. I know I did. I keep talking about it. It's hard to cut yourself off sometimes. Shows coming up. You know, guys, every single episode now, because I'm being consistent, as many of you know, I'm going to mention a couple shows coming up, and they're going to come up pretty quick. Matter of fact, one of them is this weekend, and another couple are next week or two away. But they're worth mentioning, because I get on Iron Podium, and this isn't a commercial for Iron Podium, but all of you should be on Iron Podium in the Strongman community looking at these shows, is that they offer just a lot of great insight to shows probably you'll never get a chance to go to, that probably deserve a little recognition for creativity, for the amount of competitors they have in it, for some things that they're doing from a promotional end, that maybe if you're a promoter or a competitor, that would interest you in being a part of or doing yourself. But yeah, a couple of them. And this is the first one. It's the Northside Classic, May 25th. That's this Memorial Day weekend in Fairbanks, Alaska. Several reasons I like this show, guys. A, I love these outlier shows in communities that probably don't have the biggest strongman group or competitors pool out there, right? A place like Fairbanks, Alaska, I highly doubt has a very big competitors pool in strongman, not like Texas would have, or like here in Michigan now that we're developing. They probably have a limited number of guys and gals that actually compete in the sport of strongman. So to be able to throw a show like that, and if you look at the competitor list, there's a fair number of guys and gals there that are competing. I love to see that. That's a good indicator that the sport is growing, that more and more people are getting involved in it, even in these communities that you wouldn't think would have that big of a contingency of strongmen competing, strongmen and women. And Northside Classic in Fairbanks, which that's a classic. I don't know how many times they've done it, but I'm noticing it now. So kudos to you guys out there. Another reason I love this show, the events are interesting, and some of them are classic and some classically fun, let me say. The press medley. We don't see enough press medleys. We see too many axles. We see too many logs. We see too many sandbags. We see too many circus dumbbells, but we never see them together in the same show. So that really adds an interesting dynamic to any show, is when you have a medley, because some guys are better at certain things than others, right? I'm a great presser, but I'm a shitty axle presser. So throw that axle in as the second or first part of the leg. Well, maybe I'll take it as the first because it's probably light enough for me just to rip clean it right up above my head. But if you put that as the third or fourth in that particular medley for me, oh, I'm in trouble. I better have the run of my life to that order of the event. So I love that because it challenges not just everybody, but it even challenges good pressers, because very few pressers out there are Nick Camby that press well in every single pressing event. So I love the idea of a press medley. The other one I like, this is fun, an ascending yoke run or ascending weight yoke. Now think about this, 30-foot run, the yoke is set at a standard weight. Let's just, for the sake of it, say 600 pounds. If you run that yoke 30 feet and don't set it down, because once you set it down, you're out, and you make it 30 feet, they'll add 30 pounds to the yoke, and you have to continually run 30 feet with it, adding 30 pounds until you set the yoke down. The only time you can set the yoke down is when you cross the line. So an ascending yoke competition. Very, very interesting. Super creative. I love to see that. Excuse me, guys. Lemonade makes me phlegmy. The other thing I liked was the tires back in Alaska. We don't see tire a lot. I made mention of a couple years ago at Clash. They used the tire. Next thing you know, tire disappears again because 6 guys blow their bicep out. I think there was a lot. There's a lot more things going on that made that happen than just the tire. But for the sake of the tire, we don't see it enough anymore. It used to be a classic event in strongman. So anytime I see a tire flip, I love to make mention of it. So those are the reasons I love the Northside Classic. That press medley looks like a lot of fun. The ascending yoke, again, 30 feet. Set it down, add 30 pounds, 30 feet, set it down, add 30 pounds until you can't do it anymore, or you set the yoke down midway through or at some point through that 30 feet and you're done. I've never seen an ascending yoke. To me, that is super creative. So good for you guys there at the Northside Classic in Fairbanks, Alaska, for your ascending yoke. I love it. What a creative take on an apparatus that is very familiar with all of us, and we are very, very familiar with it. But to add weight like that adds a whole different layer to that event, and I love to see it. Ohio Strongest. I didn't know Sean Shoemaker was promoting that show. Ohio Strongest. I think, Sean, you always did something. But I got to make mention of that because that's a huge field out there. And I love Sean Shoemaker, of course, as many of you know, a friend of mine in the sport. And I just saw that because I thought Ohio Strongest was promoted by somebody else. And I looked down and said Sean Shoemaker. So I'm going to give him a shout out. As we know, Sean is a perennial 105 contender, master now. He doesn't like me to say that, but he's still a tremendous deadlifter, well over 800 pounds as a 105 master, which is amazing. Close to 900 at one point, if not just over 9, Sean. And I always love to give you kudos for that because there's not many 105ers out there pulling 900, or will there ever be? But yeah, he's got a show going on, Canfield, Ohio, June 1st. That's the Ohio Strongest. Dear to my heart. They used to call it Ohio Strongest Man because I've won it. And that's why I love Ohio Strongest, just to take claim to that. But that's going to be a big show down there. Zerker Carry, Sean, hate that event. Hate it. Zerker Carry. That you and George really need to talk each other out of that event from this point moving forward. Deadlift for reps, no surprise there. We're going to see a deadlift from Sean Shoemaker. Barbell press ladder, love it. It's a barbell, guys. It's not an axle. Hallelujah. Thank you, Sean, for putting an apparatus in your show that's not an axle. A regular barbell press, for those of us that have broken our hands so many times, I got no movement in my wrist either way. I would appreciate the barbell. I actually might be able to pull that off. So barbell press medley. Great. Love it. Ohio's Strongest, Sean Shoemaker. That's June 1st. Yeah, that's where I'm at. And you guys know where I'm going to be. Battle at the Beach, July 13th. That is going to be my next show that I'm going to commentate and live stream for Nick O'Hara. I just want to make sure I'm pointing these out. I'll be there for that. And that's going to be a free live stream on the Gym Life podcast. So remember that. You guys will see some of that pageantry out there in Harbor Beach, Michigan, along with a lot of the competitors that we were getting out there as well from the Great Lakes community and beyond. We love to cross state lines around here. What else is going on? I think that's it, you guys. I think that's it. I just want to remind you guys, and I'm doing it at the end of my show, which probably is bullshit because I need to figure out how to do this a little bit better from a production standpoint. But I like, subscribe, and share, please. Again, I get nothing for it. It just makes me know that you guys are engaged with me, and I love that. It fires me up for all these shows, and I have no complaints over the last couple weeks. It has been absolutely amazing. You guys have been so engaged with the show, and I've gotten more subscribers, more likes, more shares, and that's awesome because that's the only way I get this show out to the rest of the community and beyond is because you guys are out there supporting what I'm doing like I'm supporting all of you. So thank you very much, and if you guys can just keep sharing, liking, and encouraging your friends and other people you know in the gym life to subscribe to my channel on YouTube or on Spotify, I would appreciate it. Thanks to all you guys. Yeah. All right. So I think that'll probably do it. I mean, at this point, we covered some good stuff this week. We're going to get onto that topic, summer show somehow, some way. I'm going to put that together in the next week, probably after Memorial Day weekend. We'll have a lot of fun stuff to talk about coming off that weekend. So maybe a show after Memorial Day. How about that? And then we'll get on to summer fun and all this great stuff we have coming up. Wish me luck in the Highland Games this weekend in Elma on Sunday, and wish me luck on Saturday keeping my shit together so I can actually compete at a high level on Sunday. You guys know I like to indulge. 90-10 rule. Yeah, so anyhow, I don't want to get off on that tangent at the end of the show, but in any case, 90-10 rule, no beers for me on Saturday. I'm going to compete well on Sunday, prove it all to you guys that I can actually get the job done in Highland Games like I used to do in Strongman, because apparently it's my newfound love. So anyhow,